Hello and good evening and welcome to Daily Politics and Trust TV, your platform for robust conversation and issues around politics, policy and governance. I am Shafi'u Suleiman. Tonight, we'll delve into the growing outrage over 50% increase in tariff by telecom operators in Nigeria over rising cost of operations threatening their survival. The increase, which commenced on Monday following its approval by the NCC, further strains Nigerians as they currently grapple with the cost of living crisis triggered by fuel subsidy removal, hyperinflation, and falling value of the naira. While the House of Representatives and the organized labor call for a reversal, threatening to shut down telcos operations if they fail to roll back the increase by 29th of this month, Nigerians have started feeling the impact of the tariff hike. Now, joining us to dissect the issues is Dr. Suleiman Hashim, a political affairs analyst and an APC chieftain. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Far too kind.
Right.
Thank you. Best regards.
And on the second part of our conversation, we'll be taking a look at the internal crisis in the NNPP, which recently held a convention in Lagos and ratified, elect a new ESCO and reaffirm its sack of former Governor of Kano State, Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, and his team of executives, just as it announced the termination of an MOU between the two parties. Now, this comes as INEC continue to recognize the Ahmed Ajuji-led ESCO of the NNPP, which is backed by the former Kano State Governor Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso. Now, the National Publicity Secretary of the Kwankwaso-led NNPP, Oladipo Johnson, will join us virtually from Lagos to react to this development. Now, thank you for joining the conversation tonight. And to start with, just like I said, we have in the studio Dr. Suleiman Hashim. Doctor, it's good to have you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Pleased to be here.
Great.
Yeah, I like you out here.
Right. You know, beyond just being a political affairs analyst, you happen to also be an APC chieftain. Now, your party, the APC ruling government, is pushing down the throats of Nigerians. Quite a number of doses, you know, policy choices that are many considered anti-people, you know, from subsidy removal, you know, electricity tariff hike, you know, VAT hike, and so on and so forth. Here we are talking about, you know, telecom tariff hike, which affects, you know, calls, data, and so on and so forth. Nigerians are grounding, you know, finding it difficult to breathe. Yet the government is pushing more of these doses. Where exactly is the APC government want to push Nigerians to?
Great. So I love the fact that you've reeled out things that are apparent. Some other people like me may not necessarily agree with all of the things you say because I choose to be a lot more practical than maybe perhaps you media who pick up all the perception of people, put them together and try to make it look like that was the reality. But I even want to start this conversation from giving you a little story about myself, right? In 2014, the then First Lady, Aisha Buhari, had organized a program called The Beginning. She held it at the State House. And I, among others like Festus Keyamo, Honorable Minister, Solomon Dalong, and a couple of others gave a keynote address. And guess what? I was the last person who was to speak on the order of the protocol. And every other person who had gone there to speak before me had gone to start to talk about what Jonathan did or what he didn't do. More like trying to steal beats and make it look like we're in a campaign season. But when I came up on board to speak, I think to the surprise of so many, I deviated. Because I reminded everybody there, because there were all the young people who do social media and all of that she invited, I reminded them about how now that there is a victory, it is now time to get to work. And I also illustrated the sort of work that I thought they should be doing with their social media handles by communicating to the downtrodden the policies of the government so the people can key in.
Now I'm giving you okay, because we don't have much time.
Yes, so I'm giving you this background so we can I can now delve into also what we're talking about today, right? These policies, like you've spoken about, they are real, They are out there, and then we're also hearing a whole lot about them. But if you break it down now into the granular, you now talk about, for example, say, price of cement has gone up. For example, I want to use that, right, as an example. But I can also bet you that as the price of cement has gone up, the guys doing the POPs and the electrical job in all of the buildings that you see and the estates have also had their own rates increase. And so therefore, as much as you think that maybe a lot of other people in that downtrodden that you're talking about are equally making more money as a result of the increase in water. So it's not like the price increase
what is the percentage compared to what is obtainable? I mean, in terms of the number of Nigerians affected.
Great.
I think that is the concern.
Okay.
Let's look at the issues one after the other.
Great.
For instance, the government is, keep insisting that all that it has been doing in terms of these reforms are in the interest of the people, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And at the same time, the government is also looking at what it will save in terms of money to channel towards other ventures, infrastructure, as they call it, social intervention, and so on and so forth. Take, for instance, the government told Nigerians that it saves 8 trillion naira from subsidy removal.
Great.
And forex, harmonization.
Absolutely.
8 trillion naira.
Yes.
Okay. Again, when it also took out subsidy from electricity, government said it saved 1.4 trillion naira. Okay, you put together, you're talking about almost 10 trillion naira.
Great.
And just with this, not even talk about the VAT, for instance. This tariff hike in telecom, some will say, many look at it from the perspective or the point of view of the operators. But beyond that, the government is also targeting 1.6 trillion naira out of it. So put together, we're talking about almost 12 trillion naira.
Great.
All of this is being saved, as the government said, in the interest of the people.
Yes.
But Nigerians are not seeing the result, for instance.
Okay.
Yes, you're talking about a fraction of people whose, services have, got value and all of that. But significant percentage of Nigerians are not seeing the result.
Okay.
The end result is that there is increase in the number of poor people. More people are being pushed into hardship.
Okay.
There is significant rise in the number of unemployed people. Businesses are collapsing. So who is getting the benefit of all of these policies that we're talking about?
I love, the way you've structured the questions. I love how you put out the numbers. And they are actually factual numbers, and they're real. But guess what? Daniel Boala was on some station yesterday morning, and he was also asked about something related to this area, especially about subsidy removal and harmonization of the dollar. And he said that when he met the president for a meeting that was supposed to last 15 minutes, it ended up lasting over an hour because the president took time to explain to him that when he came in, right, there was no money. And look, there are also data, because I want us to also focus on data just like you focused on data. The news is out there. If you could simply Google, you will see that over 90% of our revenues were being used to service debt shortly before Buhari left office. And this government came, because I want us to stick to the data. I don't want it to look as if
how
everybody is
will that
resonate
with Nigerians looking at the numbers now? Because you're talking about debt, payment.
Yeah. So
this government has taken debt more than the Buhari government.
So I'm getting there. I'm all getting there.
Okay.
Now, this government came and said that it had reduced this debt servicing to about 60-something%, right?
Yeah.
And now that means you still have a chunk of revenue that is going to come. But guess what, sir? I understand the workings of the public sector, and I understand the places of FAC, for example. That money that people see that is being shared in FAC on a monthly basis that have sprung up is all coming from those chunk of revenues. So it is not like all of these figures that you're reeling out, the federal government actually keeps it to herself, because that's not the reality. You're a public person, you discuss, and you know how some of these things have been done. You are aware that the FAC has increased. Now, regardless, we're still having to service this debt by about 60-something%, like they have said, and the National Assembly has equally concurred, right? That is not to say that you would still, every country borrows. So when you're talking about the fact that they are borrowing, but please, I want us to be specific and understand what it is that they're borrowing for. I would presume at the moment right now.
That's not what they told Nigerians when they came on board. That they're going to halt the borrowings, that's one, and they're going to work towards
but it's impossible to halt borrowing.
And of course, and also reducing the ratio in terms of, the debt payment to, to the revenue generation and all of that. But all that Nigerians are beginning to see. But we're
buoyant. Let's be honest. I just spoke. You know about how much states monies from 400 billion to about 1 point something trillion. That's where the money is going.
But how does it add value to Nigerians?
So
because ordinary Nigerians, what Nigerians
beautiful,
expect is to
I
see
love this,
the impact.
I love this, sir. And that is where now the actual tendencies of democracy need to come to play. And that's why we have to lay some of these things bare. We have to make everybody understand, like, okay, this is what it is. There is nowhere, even on your own personal economy. I used to work in Ondo at some point. My wife was in Kano. I only go, me and her, we sat down, we agreed that, okay, look, with this salary, I can only be able to fly to Kano from Lagos. From Ore, I'll go to Lagos. I can only be able to fly once in a month. That is me building my life around what I can be able to earn. And the conversation that I see that a whole lot of people try to ignore while discussing all of these topics is how the money should be made. Because the money has to be made before it is then being spent. Guess what? Recently, not up to a month ago, the CBN settled again another $8 billion of trapped funds of international organizations that are operating in Nigeria. Do the maths of $8 billion, for example, to Naira using whatever rate. You're still going to be coming to about that 12 trillion Naira, for example, that you've spoken about. So look, but what I am extremely optimistic about is the fact that this tax bill that is coming on board, and that has also been debated robustly and largely now accepted by every Nigerian, and which we're supposed to be bound to because the governors and everybody has sat down to say they've agreed on it. I am extremely optimistic that it is going to improve our revenue base. I also like to see movements like trying to settle with the Ogoni so we can start to drill and increase our oil productivity. We're going to have more money. And once the money is available...
Revenue is already been enhanced. We talked about, how they were able to even save within what they have. They're talking about...
But the savings is there. Everybody's seeing them.
Beyond that, they are talking about increase in terms of revenue from oil production and all of that. But it's not translating. That's what Nigerians are concerned about.
It will translate.
Let's look at it. Sir, let's take them one after the other. 2 years down the lane, the government has been talking about, the impact of these reforms. Nigerians are going to see, there is light at the end of the tunnel and all of that. But 2 years down the lane, what Nigerians see in terms of the reality of life is that things have gone southwest, south, so to speak. Let's talk about it. In terms of transportation, it has quadrupled, Virtually everything you do in Nigeria has multiplied maybe 4 times. But there is no corresponding revenue, or increase in terms of your purchasing power or in terms of your earnings. The government had to go back and forth to even agree on 70,000 Naira minimum wage.
Okay,
Where can 70,000 Naira minimum wage?
So I like all of the things. You see, I like them because they're real, but then I'd like to also address them based on facts and facts that you and I know. First of all, you should also Google this. Last year, 2024, there was 1.07 quadrillion e-transactions in Nigeria, not trillion. I need you to Google it. I need you to fact check me on this. 1.07 quadrillion e-transfers in Nigeria, all-time high last year. Now, the point I'm trying to make you understand is that, look, everybody has got their economies. And I also want to give you this example. I have somebody who fixes my AC. Do you know what? I have to book this guy. I have to book him. He told me, I called him, he said, "Oga, I'm busy, you'll come the next day." That next day again, he couldn't come because he told me he had so much work he's doing. He's equally a Nigerian who, maybe if you ask this question, you have a different, and you cannot tell him not to have that opinion because whatever it is that people are trying to force on him is not his reality. So I'm just trying to make you understand that, look, nobody is denying the fact that the changes have disrupted the system. Disruption is part and parcel of life. But again, is that whatever patronage that people are doing to businesses, it is also Nigerians like me and you who own those businesses. The other day there was this documentary on some TV station where some farmer, a simple calculation there showed that he had sold over ₦1 billion worth of goods. If you go and ask that person again, he's going to have a different opinion about this matter. So again, I am a firm believer of the fact that you have to earn the money before you will then be able to spend it. I'm extremely particular about what are the revenue sources of Nigeria. I'm particular about them.
How do people even earn the money in the first place? Because
no, I'm talking about not the people. I'm talking about the government. I mean, the government has to make money.
Government is making money, which is obvious. People are seeing the money being
but
made by government.
I didn't deny it.
The point is,
I broke it down about how this money is.
But the point is, what goes to Nigerians? You know, yes, they are making money. They are still living the kind of luxurious life they are living. Nothing changed.
That's who are you talking about?
I'm talking about the leadership or the elite.
But those are their privileges. I don't go into that.
Okay, but they are the ones controlling the resources.
Yeah, but that's how it happens
the
all over the world.
ordinary people are the ones being squeezed on daily basis.
You think the king of Qatar is a poor man? He is not.
They are the ones being squeezed, the ordinary people. Because the removal of subsidy affects the ordinary people. They move around, they transport themselves, they rely on petrol to power their generators and do what they do.
I understand all of these things you're saying, yeah?
And then yet, even communication, which is very essential, now is being denied Nigerians, so to speak. Because if you have 50% increase in tariff, you know, on calls and on data, for instance, how would you explain how an ordinary Nigerian, maybe one who is, you know,
I love this question.
You know, part of the remotest part of Nigeria, who relies perhaps on a 200 naira recharge card to reach out to his family or to even run his business.
Let me tell you, over the maybe last 2-3 years, there's this my colleague in the office. He has a lot of dealings with people in Dubai, and there's one constant thing I have noticed with him and how he communicates with those guys, strictly through voice notes of WhatsApp. In fact, it is practically impossible for you to see him make a call. I'm trying to make a point.
Driven by what? Data? So, the same data has 50% increase.
I'm trying to get somewhere, sir.
Okay.
I am now saying that, for example, if I don't have really a pressing need to place a call to you, I'd rather use my WhatsApp to send a voice note to you. And guess what? All of these providers actually have bundles that we even use only WhatsApp.
That's what
which goes for something that at least people can. So what I'm saying is that
either way you have to spend, because if you're buying data, it also has 50% increase.
Nothing's going to come free.
How many people in Nigeria can even afford Androids that you're talking about?
Sorry?
The vast majority of Nigerians cannot even afford Android phones.
But
we're talking about 70% of Nigerians.
I beg to disagree with that, because I'm from a remote area. And guess what? Look, all of these data are things that I sit down by myself to make a research. Practically every young man in my village is on the Facebook. Because I see them comment, I see them like, when I talk with them, they say, Alaji, yesterday we saw you on the TV, we saw you on this. So I use that data because I could equally choose to, for example, be in that thought. Do you understand? If I don't experience some of these things in a practical basis, I also fathom as to how all of these guys
but
are
the
actually
statistics
on
are
Facebook.
there. They are not lying. Over 50% of Nigerians live below poverty line. We're talking about 105 to 10 million Nigerians living below poverty line.
But there's poverty everywhere, sir. There's poverty everywhere. But people will have to just learn to live their level. But the point I'm saying is that data has shown me that if you tell me that people on the downtrodden do not have, they don't have Android, data has proven that wrong to me, because I see these guys, they're present there, they communicate, they talk, they share things. In fact, some of them even get all these menial social media jobs to do for politicians, repost and repost.
You're talking about micro groups,
No, micro groups. I'm telling you from grassroots. I'm a grassroots. I did primary 1 to 3 in that town. So practically everybody knows me. I know everybody. So when I see your comment,
let's come back to the tariff hike. Let's come back to the tariff hike. For instance, government primarily exists, to address two fundamental issues:
welfare,
security, and the welfare of the people. And the reason behind this tariff hike, according to the operators, is because of the harsh operating environment.
Absolutely.
And who created that, the same government, which came up with policies that are difficult, that made it difficult for operators, to make ends meet, and they have to increase. Why is the government interested in allowing the operators, these telecom operators, to increase tariff in a situation whereby the people are deeply, in poverty? They cannot even, battling with survival, and yet the government allowed this to happen. Let me drive at what I'm trying to drive at. Why is it difficult for the government to take out of these trillions of naira it is declaring as savings for subsidy to augment, and subsidize the communication because of the necessity it has on the ordinary Nigerian people? Why is it difficult to do that?
Okay, so you see, everything like I have maintained here and like I have said is everything has to come step by step. And I tell you, because I don't know how some of these things, like I say, I even get shocked when I see them. I get shocked to find out that practically every young man in my hometown is on Facebook. I don't know how they do it. I want to know. Sometimes I hold conversations with them. They tell me about their bumper harvest and all of that. Now, but it's not something I've really probed. But I want to come down. Do it? But
is the government aiding them to get the bumper harvest?
So that's fuel is
we can still get transportation cost is high.
No. Trust me.
They are struggling to be.
Trust me. If you take like states like mine, to be honest with you, like you see, we have to be honest with each other. If you come to states like mine, you can see clearly there's always government's hand in supporting agriculture. Not federal. Not federal.
In terms of providing subsidy for fertilizers?
Yeah, they do all of that. Yeah, they do all of that. Trust me, some governors.
At a cheaper rate for the farmers?
You know what? I need you to make a research about Jigawa. I'm not speaking about any other states, but I am aware that as much as possible, if you go to Jigawa State, you see semblance of presence of state governments in people's lives.
You're talking about state government, yeah.
I'm now going to come back to the area of
and we're talking about the central
tariff.
government, which control the large chunk of the resources.
Tariff now. I want to come back to tariff of GSM
and the logic,
all of that, right?
behind allowing
No, the thing is that, like I told you, data-wise again, is that if you say they should take out this money and do subsidy, it was obvious, it was clear to everybody that a lot of the debt that we incurred under Buhari was purely for consumption, for fuel subsidies that you're talking about, and dollar subsidies and the rest of them, right? And then this government came, as at the time it came, the data again is there, let people check it. Over 90% of our monies, revenues that come in are going for debt servicing. So there's practically no of this. In fact, you have the barrels of crude oil being produced down to about almost 700,000 barrels. All of this data, I want everybody to go and check this data. And now, so for me, like I keep on insisting, I don't even mind if government is going to subsidize everything. But I am extremely particular about whatever revenue source that will bring as much liquidity to be able to do some of these things. I see this government as trying to, first of all, ensure optimization of that area related to revenue. Perhaps in the future, a lot of these things can come. But in the meantime, for a quadrillion naira transactions to have happened electronically in Nigeria last year means that there are some aids and transfers. You send 5K home, me I can send 2K, that one sends this. Somehow, Nigerians will have a way of coming together to survive. But I believe strongly that at the end of the day, and most importantly is, we would have to preach to young people especially, that they would have to be able to latch on some, because we move on the street and we see people who don't know anybody but who are getting money, just like my AC repairer that I told you, he doesn't know nobody. I am the one even chasing him to come and fix my AC. He will go home with nothing less
because
than 10K,
he has the skill.
50K. That's
even
the
the education now
so
is being denied. Institutions, people cannot even pay their tuition fees. Children cannot pay.
Yeah, but you have NEL fund, for example.
Must someone get a loan
before
he can get educated?
Yeah, but so what do you want?
Isn't it the responsibility of the government to even provide basic
giving them cash? Nobody
people?
does that. I'm not sure anybody does that anywhere.
Okay, you keep emphasizing the fact that the government has been paying debt and all of that.
It's obvious.
As what do you call it? As
No, it's not paying debt. It's an agreement.
Yeah,
it's something that has
should
been
be
entered. Yeah, the country has
But the
entered
same
into...
government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in the last 18 months has taken 20.1 trillion naira.
Yeah, so that's what I'm, sir.
You know, so how do we reconcile these issues?
See, that's why you have to understand.
We are also incurring debt. At the same time, we are adding monies from revenue internally generated.
If you want to discuss economy, you cannot use, like, how will I say? Look, go to all the businessmen. Go and ask Dangote, go and ask all of them. Regardless of how wealthy their companies are, there are certain projects that if they want to undertake, trust me, they pick loans. The point I'm trying to make you understand is regardless of how healthy we become, it is still not going to stop any government from picking loan, because America is perhaps one of the most indebted countries all over the world. But I don't want to focus, look, people would say, for example, the controversial... No, sir. For
Americans
example,
are seeing the result.
I was telling somebody...
They have basic health care, they have, healthcare packages, they have all other packages.
So you're not there. You see, we have to get there in terms... You need liquidity for this things. You need liquidity. There is nothing that will come free. You're not going to build all of those
Even
things
with the
free.
almost 50 trillion naira budget that we're doing, is still talking about liquidity?
Sorry?
With the 50 trillion naira
budget is an estimate. Budget doesn't mean cash at hand. You also know that about 17 trillion in that money is also like there has not been any revenue identification of where it's going to come from. So we have a deficit of that. But budget are estimate. It's not the entire budget that the government implements at the end of the day. Things that are not priority, you have a right to drop them if you do not have the cash backing for them. So all of that would always be there. But the bottom line again is that I see an attempt, and this thing has to even become a national psyche, that we have to learn, whether subnationals or even the federal government, we have to concentrate on productivity. We have to look at how people will put in and something will come out. And that way, you have a robust, you have as much liquidity.
And how do you get into productivity with epileptic power supply? Grid collapses,
So
how do we get into production?
That power thing, look, I was just even talking about it on some
companies folding up.
You know what? No. So companies folding up, we even prefer our own internal ones to come up. Those ones, if they want to go, and that's the honest truth, because what we want even, what do you gain from a company coming and employing all of his country people in your country? He's adding little or nothing. So we want internal people to see all of that exit and the gap it creates as an opportunity to fill in those gaps and do something.
Educate Nigerians. In what sense is this government impacting? At what level? How can you explain how the government is impacting on the ordinary people in spite of all of these reforms you're talking about?
Do you know
what impact is it making?
Sir, I like this question, and I want to also, return it back to you to ask you, what specifically do you think government owes a citizen? Because trust me, I have some of these conversations with people, and I see a semblance of maybe wanting the government to knock on the door and drop some cookies. I've never seen it happen anywhere around the world. I've recently traveled to...
Well, we talked about the basics. We talked about the basics, security, welfare, education,
So let's be honest. So let's be honest on security. I mean, I think right now, even I can see from the social space that even those who don't necessarily agree so much with the government have really agreed indeed that there has been improvement in security. And I think
that's why a whole general is being abducted. Like,
sorry? No, so sir, do you know what my position is about that? So no, because look, like I said, we need to be extremely factual with ourselves. You see, the human...
Isn't this a fact?
Yeah, no, it's a fact, but I want to tell you something about it, and you would have to make a sense of it. If you go everywhere, every developed environment, environments are cascaded. You that you're here now, sir, whether you like it or not, you're on Trust TV, everybody sees you on a daily, you're an elite. I would not expect to see you living at maybe say Giri or somewhere. To be honest, no, because I'm being real with you. So the thing is, sir,
perhaps maybe I'm living in anyway.
No, so I'm being honest. As an ex-DG of NYSC, I would expect, at least, even if he chooses to be back home, at least he should be in Katsina City. But to be honest, like all of that will create, it's natural. People pass by, they remember this before you know, small conversations start and they could do that. So for me, that is not
let's get your final thoughts. How do you think the APC government will survive all of this public outcry, outrage over all of these anti-people policies? 2027 is by.
Yeah, trust me, it's a dilemma that I think reformists will have to go through. I think that efforts will have to continue to be made, because I don't think that there's going to be a going back on this. Efforts will have to continue to be made to make Nigerians understand these things in a granular form and understand that indeed all that is being made, and I think all that the president is trying to do is to make Nigeria to also have the advantage that Lagos had because of having as much liquidity. Lagos can do anything she likes right now because she has got the liquidity. If you do not have the liquidity,
where was it tapped from?
You this thing. So at the end of the day, I think that's,
question. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Suleiman Hashim, for talking to us on Daily Politics. We appreciate you. We hope to have you some other time.
Why not? We're here.
Viewers, that's a wrap on the first part of our conversation with Dr. Suleiman Hashim, a political affairs analyst and an APC chieftain. Together, we'll be looking at the telecom tariff hike and how it impacts on Nigerians.